Hello, Cambria family and friends. It has been a while since I have given you an update via this venue. I've done it via letters and emails and through the announcements on Sundays. But I thought it'd be good to give you an update on what is going on through this venue at this point in time. Throughout this period, we have sought to rightly apply the biblical principles that relate to the situation in which we find ourselves. We've been very aware of the command in Hebrews 10, 24 and 25 for the church to not forsake the assembling of ourselves together. And we've rightly interpreted that not forsaking as it means not to turn your back on it. And to this point, I believe we've been faithful with that. Yet this has been a delicate balance with the other principles that apply to this situation. Principles like caring for the most vulnerable that we see in James 2 or in Matthew 25 or 1 John 3 or Philippians 2. Our testimony to the lost, Matthew 5:16 talks about that. 2 Corinthians 8:21 speaks about this fact. The command not to fear. Philippians 4:6 and 7 give a clear command that we're not to be anxious about life. And the principle to submit and to honor our civil authorities. We find that in Romans 13 and in 1 Peter chapter 2. Well, when this whole thing started, this COVID-19 crisis began, there really was unanimity among our civil authorities about the steps that were necessary for society to take. And while the governor did exempt churches from her executive orders, because of this unanimity among the civil leaders, our church leadership felt that it was best for us to honor what they were saying and to take very seriously the issue and the principles of caring for the most vulnerable and honoring our civil authority. It's no secret, over the last month, this unanimity among our civil leaders has degraded. We have been getting mixed messages, we've been getting contradictory messages as to what is expected in our society, and it's caused no end of frustration for all of us, as we all readily would agree. This last Friday, President Trump ordered that the time had come for churches to open their doors and to begin meeting again. And further, as we've learned more about the virus and we've learned more about how to protect one another from it, this has helped us with our decision making. And so with this in mind, I met with the Board of Deacons last night to discuss our plans as we move forward. And the challenges of the last few months have been unlike any we've ever faced. They've been without question some of the hardest decisions we've ever had to make. The questions we sought to answer last night were questions like, at what point does the principle of assembling override or come to the forefront over the other principles? When does that principle take precedence? Or perhaps we could word it, at what point do we move into actually forsaking assembling together and disobeying that principle? And also the question then, can we assemble while still honoring our civil authorities? Good Christians can look at these questions and answer them very differently and both be right before God. These are questions of conscience. And so last night we sought to answer these questions for our body here at Cambria. Now, after a lengthy discussion and working through it, the board came to a unanimous decision on what we ought to do moving forward. And here's what we've decided. We will begin meeting for the morning service in our auditorium on Sunday, June 14th. Now, I know that's a few weeks away. We did this for a couple of reasons. This will provide for us sufficient amount of time to get the precautionary measures into place and organize things into place before we move into the building. This also, though, will give the governor another opportunity to open things up when her executive order is set to expire on June the 12th. And we feel that because of the president's statement, because of the governor's exemption of churches throughout this whole thing, and really because of the mixed signals that we've been getting now from civil leadership, that we can now meet without dishonoring our civil authority. And that's been a big issue through all of this. This Sunday morning worship will be restricted to a single morning service at 10:30 a.m. So June 14th, 10:30 a.m. will be the first time that we meet together in the auditorium. Let me note that until then, we'll continue what we've been doing. We'll do our drive-in services, weather permitting. Now, with this service, we are going to only have Sunday morning. Now, we're doing this in order to give our custodians sufficient amount of time to sanitize and clean the auditorium before we meet in there again. We also, it'll look a little different as you come into the auditorium that Sunday. We are going to rope off or block off every other pew. And to encourage that physical distancing that needs to take place. And we're going to encourage you to spread out throughout our entire auditorium. At this point, we will not be providing any children's church. We are waiting on some things there to move forward. We're waiting to see what goes on with the schools to move forward with any kinds of children's ministry. So at this point, we will not be providing any children's church. We are working through a plan to try and provide a nursery for the infants and the toddlers. And so we'll keep you posted on where that ends up. As a result, we're going to seek to keep the service to a reasonable length. I know for some parents that's a concern, having the kids in there. Let me encourage you, this is a great opportunity to teach your kids how to sit through church, why we do certain things in church. But we'll try to meet you as well part way and keep the service to a reasonable length. We are still going to have greeters at the doors. It will look a little different though. We will have a greeter at the door who will be responsible for opening the doors for everybody that comes in order to limit the amount of physical contact that we have on those doors. We'll also have a greeter up in the lobby handing out the bulletins and the service materials that will give that to you so that once again it limits the amount of contact on those materials. Let me just put out an appeal. If you are among those who are on the less vulnerable group towards this illness, and if you would be willing to help with those positions, we can use the help. So if you would contact me, I would greatly appreciate that, and we can plug you in to those areas. I know back at Easter time, I had mentioned that we would move our Easter program back to the second week after we gathered together. However, as time has progressed, that is looking like a less wise decision. With CDC guidelines and things that are out there, the need to physically distance with the choir, it seems best at this point that we not have choir for the foreseeable future. Typically, we do not have choir during the summer anyways, and so basically we're just going to do what we normally do. We won't have choir through the summer, and we'll revisit that in the fall when the time comes again for us to revisit that. So there'll be no choir. Now, without question, the most controversial issue is the concept of masks. Should we or should we not wear masks? Now, the CDC requirements or recommendations for church gatherings recommend masks. And so we are asking that you wear a mask. But let me make this statement. I want to encourage everyone to practice the principles of Romans 14 with one another. Some of you believe that masks are very important and very helpful. Some of you think that masks are an absolute waste of time and you don't have the time of day for them. We need to be sure that we let everyone be ruled by love for one another and by their conscience. So love and care for one another in this. Ask how you can love your fellow member in the way that you respond to this. And let me encourage you to be there on Sunday. We are going to work through Romans 14 and how to have unity in the midst of disagreement. And this is one of those issues. So we're going to ask that you do, but obviously you'll be ruled by your own conscience in that. The big thing is that I do not want to see our church divided over a piece of cloth. Let's love one another through that. Some of you are in a vulnerable situation. Some of you are very concerned, and so you really are not willing or ready at this point to begin to assemble together. And we respect that and we recognize that. And we would encourage you, if that's where you are, not to violate your conscience. And so we will continue to provide recordings for our services as we have been doing. We'll record the service on Sunday morning and we will put it onto our YouTube page by Tuesday. For those that are unable to get onto our YouTube channel, I will continue to provide for them a printed off copy of the sermon manuscript for them to use. And our concern is to care for you through this time. And it's going to be a time of change as we work through this. As I mentioned, it's only going to be a Sunday morning service. That means we will not have Sunday school. We're not going to have Wednesday night programs. We're not going to have our children's programs at this time. But one thing we are going to seek to provide is weeknight small group Bible studies. And so we'll have you sign up if you're interested in this on June 14th. We'll have sign-up sheets for you to sign up for a certain night of a small group Bible study. Every night's going to be the same Bible study. So it's not like you have to decide which study you want to do. It's just going to be based on your schedule and the availability as we try to keep it small. And this will provide some more intimate opportunities for you to fellowship after this extended time apart. And so you can look forward to that and be ready to sign up, and we'll give you more information as we get closer to that. The next few weeks and months will be a period of growing for all of us. We will see that some things that we are doing, we ought not be doing. We will see some things that we're not doing that we ought to be doing. We are going to be working through this together. And some of you are very concerned about all that's been going on. Some of you are not concerned at all about all that is going on. Some of you feel very strongly about the need to physically distance. Some of you are ready to shake hands and hug it out. You're ready. It's time for you. We have members on both extremes of this and everywhere in the middle. And Satan would love nothing more than to divide our body over these things. And so I want to conclude to challenge you that it is vital that we take to heart the challenge laid down by Paul in Philippians chapter 2. He says, "So if there's any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Look each of you not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others." It is vital for the health of our body during this time that we humbly serve one another, that we are gracious, that we hold our opinions very loosely, that we not die on hills that are unnecessary to die on, and that we serve one another through this period. I am excited to gather together again. I look forward to being in the auditorium, to assembling together. While I've enjoyed our drive-in services, I really look forward to being together. If you have any questions or concerns through this, or any problems or ways that we can help you, please contact us and let us know, and we will be more than happy to answer your questions or to work through any of the issues with you. May God bless you during this time. We miss you, and we really look forward to seeing you in the auditorium on June 14th and in our parking lot on Sunday.